Can I send a piece of art when I was a noob and you can judge? I might be harsh, but yes, join it. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Okay. I'm gonna open up. It's in art, right? I made an album cover for Baby Keem's Casino album. I made this in Photoshop. Okay, let's pull it up. All right. You see it, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed, right? Let me pull this to the side. The first thing that I noticed is here. Let me just look something up. Album cover dimensions. Now, I don't know if you know this, right? But album covers are in the 1:1 square aspect ratio. So it's important whenever you're designing for something to know what the media requirements are, right? And the media requirements for an album cover will almost always be in this square format. So 3000 by 3000 pixels is technically the same if it's 2000 by 2000 pixels, 1000 by 1000 pixels. Basically what that is, it's like a division problem. So 16 by 9, like if I look up 1920 by 1080, that's 16:9, right? So this is like the 16:9 aspect ratio because it's like 16 parts for 9 parts. So it's like 16 parts for the wide, 9 parts for the tallness, and then you multiply by that. Multiply. That's a little bit more complicated than a 1:1 ratio, which is always going to be the same number twice. As like if you look up album covers here, album covers, you'll see this, right? Now there'll be like different renditions of album covers. Well, like if you're doing like different whatchamacallit, this is probably the most famous album cover too. Like there'll be like different renditions of album covers where you're doing like deluxes and stuff, or like you'll have to like take the base design and translate it into different things. But you're almost always gonna have the base of it, the thing that's like the square image, that little square. It's gonna be in a 1:1 ratio, right? Like as this, right? Now I can already tell, since you are taller than you are fronter. Did I just say fronter? Brother. Now that you're taller than you are wide, it almost reminds me of like how Spotify has like album visualizers. You know how like you'll sometimes pull up Spotify and it'll have like an album visualizer. Like that, technically you would have to take sort of your art, and if you wanted to, reimagine it in a more tall format for the phone, right? So that's the first thing I noticed. One other thing I noticed right away is I see you're taking an approach of like, there's an idea, right? So I get your ideas like casino, cards, and that's good that you like understand that there's themes just to art a lot of the times. And it seems like it's like a more cartoon approach. The one thing that I'm noticing now is like everything does feel a little bit placed, right? And that's fine if you're going for a certain vibe, but there's certain inconsistencies that you may want to pay attention to that I'll just point out really fast. Like with your shadow, I see that like it's a hard edge right here. You can see my mouse, right? It's a hard edge right here, but there's a shadow right here, but then the shadow just disappears. Same thing happens here. Might be a layer problem. Then we kind of have a different weighted stroke on the top here, and it looks like a thinner stroke here. And then this side of the stroke looks like it has a gray and not as much black on this side. And then this corner isn't rounded, but these corners are rounded. Also, you're masking here, and these are more technical things, right? I'll get to the more broad stroke things. It looks like this is just a simple alignment issue, right? You see these? How it's overlapping that black border, that this should be probably matted in perfectly on the inside part of that black. You see that? I tried to see if he would do a deluxe. I'm not familiar too much with the requirements for that. but I'll just talk about like technically what you can improve, like little things like this. This is like alignment. This is an alignment thing, which like immediately that's going to boost your quality. Since the design seems to be, everything else seems to be a little bit more flat, the fact that these dice sort of are like very three-dimensional kind of sticks out as like, you know, like if it's a top down, we wouldn't see that angle, right? We would only see the top part of it, right? So if you had your camera, think real life. If you had your camera in real life, you would only see the top part of this actually, right? And maybe we'd see that casting shadow and we'd be like, oh, that's definitely a 3D object, right? The same way that you're doing that with these, but look how straight on. I know you're collaging it all together in Photoshop, so it's important to, you're trying, what you need to do is, you know, try to picture, okay, what is it exactly going to be in real life? If I'm trying to fake it with this image of this and image of this, if it's fake, then you're gonna have to fight against these things of like, oh, I have this asset and it doesn't quite match up the angle, blah blah blah. Maybe I need to find up a new asset. And these things are important because it's gonna take away from the realism that you're trying to portray, even if it is in a cartoonish style, right? So right away, the dimension of here would imply that the camera's back, right? The camera's back, so it's getting the side of it, but the poker chip right here is implying that the camera's top down. So immediately it's like, right? So that's another thing that you can improve on is, you know, following the perspective of where you're implying the camera is. That's important. And then the shadow thing, I just want to touch on another thing, is we have this like shadow here, but no shadow here. And then the shadow's on the right side on the poker chips, right? And it looks like you may be like brushing in the shadow, but there's like a hard edge here with like no shadow. So think for me, where's the light? Is it coming from the top? Is it coming from here? Is it coming from here? Once you decide where it's coming from, obey your decision. Set your rule and obey your decision, right? So that's another thing that will immediately improve. And then the parental advisory, typically you'd probably want it in the corner and a little bit smaller. You can break rules, right? But typically you want to follow them, and it will give you a framing device to kind of cuddle it, right? Or if you have negative space, like for instance, maybe you took out the yellow one and that's where you put the parental advisory and you framed it in the corner, had equal margin and equal spacing. And then that was the thing that balanced the bottom right side of the frame to all this fun casino theme and story that you're trying to tell on the top. And like he's part of the card and everything. Now, the last note that I'll give you that will immediately improve this is here. I'm going to pull up a King of Hearts. So if you're familiar with what the actual card looks like with a King of Hearts, I don't know if you remember this, but a King of Hearts actually does this thing where it flips itself. You see the little slit? You can't really see this here, but you can see it here. You see how it cuts in half? Well, first off, you see how it's like actually aligned with the, you know how I mentioned like your corner being not aligned into the black stroke? That's a very easy fix that'll make it not look as amateur. And then you see how it's split in the side or in the middle, and then he's flipped. He does a horizontal flip. This is gonna immediately be like, oh, this is like a card. Immediately, subconsciously, people are gonna be like, oh, it's like a card. And I would say that since everything is so illustrative, since this is like a real life photo, it'd probably be cool to see some sort of posterized sort of graphic sort of filter effect on his photo, right? So it's like this cool thing, and then you split him in half and duplicate him, right? And do some sort of collage with that. It'll be like, oh, he's like the King of Hearts card, because that's not typically, this is what every King of Hearts is going to look like, right? It's always going to be split in half and flipped, so that each side, no matter what you look at it, it's flipped. So yeah, I would say that's a lot of good stuff that'll immediately improve the things that you're working on. and just, you know, hopefully that helped. I don't know if you're still here. I don't know if I scared you away, but that's basically what I would say is like some things you can do to improve it. Now, I know Patrick's probably going to give you a bunch of notes in there too, because Patrick usually gives, whenever someone sends something, he usually does a whole text paragraph. Me personally, I like the verbally, just, you know. But let me know if that made sense. Here, I'll just pause the music real quick. I did cards for this project, so let me play it real quick.
In a battle for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns takes on Brock Lesnar in a last man standing match. Don't miss SummerSlam 2023, Saturday, August 5th on the WWE Network.
So what was cool about this was that it is like gambling. It is basically based in Vegas and things of this nature. And you can even see with the final logo, it's based on like a betting table and everything. SummerSlam. This is the pitch I made for WWE that actually got me the job with WWE. Some funky motion tests of flying chairs, you know, a lot of preliminary ideas. That was my first idea. I was like, yo, I'm going to do flying chairs. Yeah, that did not get selected. But essentially, the one that did get selected was this like electric card thing where it was like basically animated playing cards. And first pass was basically this pretty dookie water, then this, and it was like actually the cards didn't look that good. And then the final design board, we really locked in that design of the cards, and it was like this sort of like WWE lightning glowing thing. They love that glow, you know, they just love that type of stuff. And I basically put together this system of all of the cards having a particular athlete on it and their color that they're typically shown in when they're on a broadcast and things of this nature. The actual matchup was shown between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, which these are typically the colors that they go with. And this is like a looping animation, so we could paste this on the card in 3D and do some cool bending and systematic things with it. But the whole thing is that this was a system, and you can plug any one of these wrestlers into that system. The thing that I mentioned before with like Brock having a name on top where you can read it and then it's flipped was the thing that I took from the king flipping thing, the thing that I mentioned earlier. I didn't actually want to flip it because I tried it and it didn't look that good. So sometimes you try things and it doesn't look that good, but I still wanted to incorporate that card feel by doing something that was flipped. So I took the names and I flipped the names, right? So here's the final out again.
In a battle for the undisputed WWE Universal Champion.
So I'm just going to pause it there. When they come out, obviously you see that animation. I'm going to mute it because I'm talking too loud. So when you see them flip out, they got this like little bend to the card, right? When they come out, and the dice sort of spawn this implied direction to sort of spawn them in. So it's like shkapoosh, and then they get spawned, and it's this whole system where you'll actually see the other wrestlers right before. So you see, right as it's like doing its little blur transition thing, you see the other wrestlers get like flip. So you see Randy Orton right there. You see Brock Lesnar, you see Seth Rollins, boom. But then you see the two that are going to match up, boom. So you could put any one of the two that are going to match up, and then they sort of spawn, and then it's like, boom. Then it locks into the same text in this whole big frame where it's like, okay, boom. This is the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and it has the same color palette as the thing. So yeah, I hope that helps. Rules are meant to be followed, but also broken when necessary. So it's good to like follow the rules and then break the rules. So hopefully that helps. I would definitely like to turn this into a series where I critique more designers that are willing to, you know, get their stuff deconstructed and actually take it to the next level. I know you're going to college for graphic design now, so, you know, good luck this semester. And you're going to get a lot of these conversations in college by your professors, and you're also going to have to do this to other people's projects. They're going to say, hey, don't just say it looks good or it looks bad. Tell me why you think so. And tell the person that you're critiquing, how can they improve, right? And that's going to train you to be a creative director. That's going to train you to be a thought leader. And that's going to train you to eventually be a value and an asset in the space. So if I do post this on YouTube and anybody in the comments wants a review, I'll leave the invite for my Discord in the description.